Let's link that with what happened at the Addis Ababa, the summit there, and the president was very clear, you could tell from the get-go to, speak of what they believe is Ruto's innocence, but also efforts on this African Court of Justice. I'll start with you, Senator, on this one, because this is not the first time we're seeing this kind of a push. First, it was, to protect sitting head of states from facing prosecution while still in office. And then now you have a situation where they want the mandate expanded so that the cases like the one that the Deputy President is now facing is tried here in Africa. What do you make of those efforts?
For me, whenever you try to strengthen mechanisms for accountability, I give my thumbs up to that. But I think the whole intention is shrouded by Uhuru in terms of entrenching impunity. And one of the things Kenya has used, unfortunately, since the Jubilee government came into power, I thought, what we needed was to have an African leader who come and promote the values of democracy, human rights, the respect for, authority, this peaceful transitions, these things that Africa longs so nostalgically for. Because we've had this one, there's almost a perception that we Africans behave in a certain way. Or you'll be told, well, you do not know how African heads of states are. Or you do not know what happens to African leaders. So since Uhuru came in, he's transformed a personal problem into Kenya's foremost diplomatic, diplomatic strategy. So he's used.
How is he entrenching impunity? You've said that.
You see what happens? He first comes, tries to get the entire African nations to withdraw from the ICC. They will not tell you that most of the African nations refused. And that's why they dropped that agenda for some time. You remember there was that thing about Kenya in the closed-door meetings. Because we have friends who sit in some of these places. Yeah. Countries came, South Africa said no, other countries said no. They said, and others even told them we have democracies back at home, or we have parliaments back at home, who have to then ratify this instrument of withdrawal and many other things. So they dropped it, knowing that to get the buy-in from 30-plus countries was not going to be easy. So now they've come with this new avenue. So what happens is you're constantly trying to fight a process because it somehow at some point implicated you in something. And I think what you do then is to give people the convenience of what you think are mechanisms that they can easily manipulate. Because you see, when you just mentioned a statement where, if I had not read the Standard, the gist of the story, I saw the headline on your front page that they were saying the African court now will let Ruto off the hook. And already when you say such kind of things, you want to believe that there will be a process that is judicious, and that when Ruto is left off the hook, there is no reason to doubt that process is beyond reproach. So I think what you do, and the first thing you do, you fly out your foreign minister to all these capitals, you try to fight, and I hoped Kenyan thorax will be used for other things, man. This energy that they're putting in, just to the theatrics. So, and as I had somebody say just now, it's not. The desirous thing is not to even have these mechanisms and hope local mechanisms will take center stage in terms of accountability.
I think I support the efforts by Uhuru Kenyatta and the Kenyan government to lobby for an African Court of Justice and Human Rights at the AU. I strongly believe the solution to African problems lies with us Africans. And as Senator was saying here, if the court is set at the Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and people of Africa believe justice, dispensation of administration of justice will take place, I think if such a court is set and it works in a similar way like at The Hague, I think that's a step in the right direction.
Okay. Whether
first of all, let me say the vitriol that my friend the senator keeps on pouring at the president of the Republic of Kenya is unwarranted. Especially the African Court of Justice or whatever is a good idea for the continent to make the whole continent more accountable. It's not necessarily to save Ruto. And Kenya is one of if you're mentioning African countries, Kenya I think is one of the 5 powerful nations in Africa. and a charming president who can come out and rally the continent is something laudable. So I do not think this court is to save Ruto. Ruto's case may not go into it, but in the long run, it will bring in accountability in Africa. We all make mistakes, but just as the ICC has played a role, ensure that people are a bit more scared now. People are more calculated in their, it has reduced the level of impunity. The African Court of Justice would also continue to add to that. But the continued vitriol about the personal problem, when the president goes to ICC, it's a national problem. It's as much as he said when he was a citizen, that is a private problem.
Do you agree when the president, we saw him there pledging taxpayers' money, 92 million shillings, to these efforts? In
fact, it should not have been a pledge. It should have been decided by the AU that each country is supposed to produce this amount of money. This thing of talking here, then you go with a bowl to Britain. How can even the AU itself, the Organization of African Unity, be dependent on begging?
So why is the pledge coming now? Because then that fuels and just adds credence to those who claim that there's only concerted efforts when it's an issue that's touching on their personal issues. Because AU for a long time, we know, has a lot of its funding coming from external sources. But now because there's this push of, against the ICC is when now we are seeing the pledges coming in. So one would argue, how convenient a time to now start saying let member states be more serious about their contributions.
That statement would have been very correct if it came from Mugabe, if it came from Museveni, or these people who have been there all these years. Then you tell them, all these years, why the pledge? President Uhuru, that was his first opportunity. He took it and said, this is the direction we are going.
Is that the first summit he's attended? Are you
the
saying
first
since he became
summit
president?
now when he has sat on the seat and is strong. The other one was really smelling of milk.
You see something.
All right, let's listen to Omar.
You have to look at the modus. This is not vitriol. This is opposition politics, where we put it as it is. You know, we're not looking for jobs. We already have jobs. We're not trying to be into boards or commissions or anything. We already are there, and we have to present a credible alternative. For me, you have to look at the entire internal narrative of Uhuru Kenyatta's government, the Jubilee so far. They've tried to erode police reforms. They've tried to erode every sense of accountability. They've tried to erode the Constitution. They've tried to erode the freedom of the media. And, you know, these are mechanisms they can easily play around with. And you see what happens, but we realize, look at how they use the majoritarian, you know, Jubilee numbers in Parliament to literally carry out a travesty, which are then subsequently, I believe, courts might be able to intervene and overturn. So if you look at the narrative of the government, it is about impunity. It's about going back to where we came from. It's about making sure that Sophia Wanuna or Gitonga are unable to report on certain issues around security, on certain issues around, you know, terrorism, so that they can then be able to have the monopoly. They want to sanitize your media so that you can only carry their Facebook posts and not carry, you know, so to speak, critical questions of accountability. So you look at the reversal that they have attempted internally, and I keep making this point, even in freedom of expression, in terms of freedom of assembly. You know, that Security Laws Amendment Act had 109 clauses, of which, even by the time it was being approved chaotically in the National Assembly, 11 clauses which are deemed to be unconstitutional have been bumped off based on public pressure from you and I. 5 had been amended to put in the supervision of the court and strengthen it in other areas. It still went to court, and court felt that maybe 8 might not take effect for the time being. You know, challenging what are called absolute rights, like Article 25 tells you, an absolute right, like a right to a fair trial. So these are not believers of fair trial. These are people who want trials that they can manipulate. So therefore, I think let's not only look at what he's doing externally, let's also look what he's doing internally for you to be informed of the kind of perception, what motivates him.
Okay, let's hear from the
If you look at how did we end up at the ICC if you go back there? During the Kibaki and Raila time, they tried to lobby the local members of parliament to set up a local tribunal to try these cases. Then all these MPs did not believe a local tribunal would dispense justice. So they believed if the case went to the ICC, that is where justice can be done. Now, if you look at the reverse of that, now if we had a local mechanism to deal with the ICC cases here, or like the one we have in Arusha, the tribunal there. Now, that would have done the same principle. But they believed ICC as international court, that's where justice can be done. So when you say they're trying to manipulate the system and so that they can do for their own, I don't believe in that. I believe then if we have an international court at the AU, that would do the same job as what we have in the ICC, but African countries being in charge of their own destiny.
But clearly they have not been, if all this time African Union, a lot of its funding going back to that WEDA, coming from external sources, which begs the question, whose agenda does the African Union even propagate?
That is exactly what I was explaining. That now President Uhuru goes there and says, gentlemen, let us put our hands in our pockets and put money here.
Yeah,
and is being told now, you are doing this for Ruto. Yet we know legally, even if this court was established, it will not handle Ruto's case. Ruto's case is almost complete. But because I would like to remind the Honorable Senator, as a refined lawyer, if we are discussing the AU, we discuss the AU. If we are discussing the local security amendment laws, I understand what is called crystallization of an issue. It's not about jobs in boards and whatever. Some of us are highly talented and blessed also. So the president is leading the others.
Yes.
He's been there for 2 years. The first year was still a baby president. The second year has realized there are timorous souls in the AU waiting to be given money by the EU and so on to run the African affairs. He says, even this one, let us cut it. So I think it is a good thing. That court will be good, not necessarily in the Ruto case. The Ruto case is almost finished. But there will be others like my friend Omar. I hope you will be. I'm praying for you to be president. But if you joke around, we'll then take you to the African ICC, African court. This is for the future, and it is a good idea.
All right, let's...